The Triple Trio with Hutchi, Richo and RS Dye. It's Hong Kong racing with the blinkers off.
Hello everybody, looking forward to a great edition of the Triple Trio, our weekly look at all things Hong Kong racing on Saturday at Sha Tin. Our very special guest is Greg Carpenter, part of the executive team at the Hong Kong Jockey Club. And I'm joined by the best in the business, the golden boy in the Hall of Famer, Shane Dye, and also Hutchi's Honkers, Clint Hutchison. And Hutch, let me just start by saying I am in awe of you. I am legitimately in awe of your brilliance in the last week. It's rare, but it's brilliant.
What is that about a broken clock?
It's right. Twice
a day. Yeah, exactly.
No, well done, mate. Great tipping.
That has been a good week, and I just love the twinkle in Shane's eye because I can see him out of the corner of my eye here every time you bring up Golden Boy. He does love that name, and we'll get to Shane in a moment. Of course, we are here in California deeply. We highlighted that last week. Weren't sure the barriers, but they ran 1-2, and they continue to run well. And of course, we had a lot of nice results actually, and this was the final race of the day, Taj Dragon, which capped off a good day. A nice ride from Vinny Ho. I think it'll be an okay form race that as well, but a nice horse going forward. But no, Shane's been in pretty good form himself as well, so we're just happy to mirror him.
Hey, mate, do you just allow me to be doing all the pumping up of the tyres? So you have been brilliant, and on Sunday you were absolutely outstanding. Golden Boy, looking forward to a big weekend of racing. How was your week?
Wednesday night, I had 2 bets. Happy Trio, which won, and the runner in the last, which run about 5th, I think. So it was a good night. Last Saturday, didn't really bet. Everything was too short. Should have backed We Are Hero. I'd priced him about $1.50 and he was $2.10. I don't know why I didn't back him. He's just flying, that horse. And when Yui's on him, he suits him so well. I actually had one bet, and I can't remember its name. The first starter of Jamie Richards, whatever it was called, it won. The grey horse. It was impressive.
Yeah, he's going really well, isn't he, Jamie Richards, at the moment? I think he makes his way up to 25 wins from memory. Let me double check that. Yeah, 25 wins for the season alongside David Hayes. So he is going beautifully. Big show. As I mentioned, Greg Carpenter, also Nicole Purton, part of our special team. We'll find you a stack of winners, sweet in defeat. But first out of the gate. Well, let's burst out of the gates with a reflection, firstly, at the Valley. And when I think of the Valley, I think of Casper Founds and a horse named after you, Hutch, the Hulk.
The Hulk. Not quite, but it was a welcome winner for... well, Casper actually had a little bit of a quiet run in terms of winners. I think going into the meeting, might have been this meeting, I think he was 1 from 50, and within the space of 2 meetings, I think he'd had about 6 or 7 winners all up. So, his percentage went from moderate to very good all of a sudden, but his horses have been running well. But I think there's a couple of stables worth following towards the end of the season because Cass is generally, he's a top 5 trainer up there year in, year out. I think we saw last year Douglas White really hit the straps late in the season. I reckon he's ready to start firing, and I think Casper will be another stable worth following. I think he's had a quiet patch, and he doesn't usually have a quiet patch for too long.
John Size, 51 wins. Ricky Yu, 46. Frankie Law, 44. Shum 37 with Cruz, and then we go to Fountains 35 as well. So, that's going to be some sort of race. Hey, talking about the jockeys, Shane, what about the clinic put on by 2 Australian jockeys on Sunday? 4 for Zach and 4 for Huey.
They just dominated. It used to be Joe and Zach. Now it's Huey and Zach, as we've been saying on the show for a while. This was a good ride, actually. Drew gate 1 and ended up a bit further back than he would have liked, so he got off the fence straight away when he could, and he gave him a perfect ride, brought him into the race at the right time, and he's racing well, this horse, Clint.
I thought this was an underratedly brilliant ride from Hugh because there was a bit of trouble up ahead of him. He drew low. He could have easily sort of dug up or got into trouble, but he just... What he does, which Douglas White used to do really well, he sort of stays balanced and he picks his way through the field while keeping the horse in their rhythm. It was a magnificent ride, and this was that Red Elegance, Shane, that you fancied on the day. He's a horse. Jamie Richards, we're talking training. This is a first starter for Jamie. Horse that jumped out for Clint McDonald in Victoria, gone really well. He's a nice horse.
Yeah, he won easy. It wasn't a strong class 4 that day, Clint. There wasn't too many that you'd like to follow in it, but he looked good. And he can, of course, go higher and win again.
And the doubles on Wednesday night at the Valley to Karis Teaton and also Lyle Hewitson.
Yep, the boys are doing pretty well. Rattan Kingdom for Karis sat back lightweight. He was up in grade. He ran well. He was another one. It's an interesting meeting to go. I went back and had a look. You know, we were on Rattan Kingdom on Derby Day. He travelled up like he was going to win, and he did, and he's gone up a class here and won. And I'm just wondering, a lot of that form from that Derby Day, gee, there's some horses that have sort of turned the tables or gone on with it, but Exponential is
give it strength.
Yeah,
Hutch.
this was a nice win, and this is another one that usually comes good at the end of the season with Douglas and Lyle. So I wonder if we'll see them team up a little bit more. But I know you thought that horse had run all right, Shane. So he was a pretty good performance.
Yeah, he's raced well all season. Of course, what has he had? 4 or 5 seconds on end, so it was only a matter of time before he won. He got a nice ride in front by Lyle, who seems to always rate them well in front, never goes too fast, never goes too slow, and always has something up his sleeve to kick the last 100.
So, Shane, how did you assess, firstly, the two superstars? We'll start with Lucky Swain-S. How did you assess his win?
There's nothing to worry about or look at. He's just too good, you know. He didn't jump well, but he does that probably, I'd say, 3 out of 5 runs. He'll miss it a bit. Zach just took his time. He didn't dig him too much to get there, which was good because he just had a lap on these horses. And he's too good, Clint. You can't say anything else. It's as simple as that.
That's the chink in his arm at the start, but he can overcome it there. Whether or not he could overcome it if he was in a full field of quality gallopers like a TJ Smith or something like that's another matter. Now, Shane, there's talk that with Lucky Swain-S that they might be going to go to the Yasuda Kinnan for the mile at the end of the season. It's been reported in the local press, which seems a strange move. And there are also some murmurings that they are looking for a slot potentially in the Everest. So
does he handle soft ground?
Well, he's not really been overly exposed in Hong Kong to the soft ground, but would you get it in the Everest at that time of year?
You traditionally still do, yeah.
Interesting. I think he'll run a mile. I think he's looking for a mile, but I'm not a big fan on taking them overseas when they're superstars in Hong Kong. There's enough for them to win every year in Hong Kong without going overseas. And I've seen a lot of horses go overseas and come back and not be as good. Silent Witness was one. It ruined him. But in saying that, a mile, it's going to be a weird preparation because he hasn't actually been trained for it. But do I think he'll run a mile? Yes, I do. I've said that from day one.
I tend to agree. I think the mile, actually, he'll be okay over, but why go and try that and tackle that?
Try it in Hong Kong.
That race, exactly. So,
try it in Hong Kong first. Yeah. What about California Spangle then, Shane? How did you assess this performance?
He won. He wasn't impressive, but he did when he couldn't lead, it probably didn't suit him. He's better in front, but if they're going to go too fast, he has to take a set the source because he'll get beat every time if he goes too fast early. And I don't care what Tony says. He says, I heard him after the race, he's got a lead, he's a better horse in front. Well, you're not a better horse in front if you're running 11s. Simple as that. You'll stop. And Zach did the right thing and allowed him to take a sit, and then it just took him a little while to get going again when he come out, Clint.
Yeah, originally when I watched it, I thought, I'm surprised that Zach handed up, and I was wrong because when I went back and looked, I know that first section was a bit steady, but there was some cushion in the track. But when I went back and assessed it, actually how it was run, when you take in the track condition on the day, they were rolling and healthy, happy. Obviously in this race, rolling along at a good tempo would
go a touch fierce, just a touch.
Proportions probably not that role leading, but I thought it was it was a lot better performance than I thought on the day. I thought you've been a bit disappointing because a lot of these horses you've been beating quite well, albeit he's been sort of dictating and he didn't get that opportunity. But tick over run for him. He's got to step up off that sort of performance if he's going to be winning. I had this rating about 1.5 lengths off what he did in the Hong Kong Mile back in December.
Okay.
And I reckon that's probably about right, Shane. I'm not sure. You know, he obviously got a race run to suit on that occasion, but yeah, I expected him to win this a bit easier, and Zach said as much afterwards, but Tony obviously said in the press afterwards to the Hong Kong public that he wanted Zach to lead at pace, but I do agree with what Shane said. If he works too hard, he would have been a little bit empty late, perhaps.
He's a very good horse. No one's knocking him, but unfortunately, he's got to run into Golden 60. And if they get the right ride and right run on Golden 60 will beat them 10 times out of 10.
You know what was interesting? I was thinking the other day about this, Shane, and I reckon if those two lined up perhaps in another country, you know, where the bigger field, it really continues to play into the hands of Golden 60 because it's a smaller field. Now Vincent knows he's just got to get the back of California Spangle and stay, and Richie will run over the top of him. But if you put more runners in the race and California Spangle's up there, now all of a sudden other guys got to make up that extra couple of lengths, you know, their records could read very differently.
But the problem with that, though, if it is a big fields generally create tempo. And that would then be a negative to California Spangle and a positive again for Golden 60.
Yeah, but you don't need too many more. He's obviously been running in 6, 7, 8 runner fields, and you only need sort of 10 or 12 runners.
So I was thinking big 16.
No, even a couple of lengths further back. It's just one of those setups for California Spangle. He's, what is he, a length and a half off, or maybe a length, maybe around that mark, inferior to Golden 60. But, you know, that's why I'm saying about, you know, it could be so different depending if there was just more depth in the fields. At the moment, it's very easy in a way for, I think, Vincent to capitalise on that. Just a sort of random thought, really.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's find out your Black Bookers sweet in defeat.
They're off, and Sugar missed the start by 4 lengths. Then Dublin Star, Sugar Fast Buck, smart leader. Oversubscribed, lunges at the post, missed. Sugar, that's a sweet win for Alfie Chad.
Well, here on the Triple Trio, Hutchie's got a black book and it's called Sweet in Defeat.
That it is, Richo. And we've had a few meetings. We've had some rain around at a few of these meetings lately, so I'm a little bit more cautious in really following some of those runners out of those meetings. Not all will handle it going forward if we strike a firmer surface. But there's 2 horses that run on Wednesday I am happy to follow. One was a very interesting run in Nice to Be Met. He did a lot wrong. He was 3 wide, no cover, and halfway around the turn, he sort of ran off for Zach, and you don't see that happen all that often. And he still sort of loomed as a good winning chance at one point of the race. And another good run was Righteous Arian, of course, for Matty Chadwick, and he drew barrier 12, Righteous Arian. He was negatively ridden. If this horse draws a gate, Shane, he'll be a lot closer in the run. We've highlighted this type of scenario with a lot of runners where they have to go back. He went back. And he'll just park at worst midfield. And if he finds a race of a similar ilk, then I would imagine Righteous Arian will be winning very soon.
Don't disagree with either horse. The first horse, Nice to Be Betty, trials very, very well, Clint. And I think first up in his first run, he started $2 or something, but he does a lot wrong. Yeah, once he learns to race properly, he's going to win races. And it was a good run. This horse here, Righteous, he gets back, he runs on, you know that. He wants a gate where he can just race 2 places closer, which would be midfield, and then he's a winning hope. When he's got gate 12, he's got to go back. He's got no option on him.
Wasn't a bad win, though. Happy Trio. Shane liked him, so it was one of our results on Wednesday too. We needed Happy Trio to get up, and it was a tough win, actually. It was wide throughout, so it was a good performance.
I tell you what, I didn't like it in the run, Clint. 3 wide being pushed. I thought this has got no hope. It surprised me how well he stuck on, but his last run was similar. His last run was really good. He stuck on.
And just on that note, Shane, like the Hong Kong handicapper won't overly penalise him for that win. He probably won by a head. So what does he go up? 5 points, maybe 6? I haven't checked to see.
I haven't checked, that's all.
But normally they go up that. But, you know, you'd say a horse that endures that sort of trip in Hong Kong generally will be hard to beat again.
Yes, because he hasn't gone up many points. It's nothing. He stays in the same class, goes up 5, and that's what I've been trying to explain. Sometimes, see, that win there is bigger than a horse winning by 3 lengths who has a perfect run, third fence, come out. It was far better win than any horse who could win by 3 lengths with a perfect run.
Okay, let's analyse all the good rides for the week that was in Hong Kong.
They sweep for home now. Beander Cross has come very wide. Beander Cross answering the urgings of Shane Dye. Mannerism coming at him. Mannerism has got it.
Daring tactics by Shane Dye. He's got Octagonal in full flight on the corner. Bold tactics by Shane Dye are going to pay off, and he pinches the Chipping Norton.
It's a segment we call Genius or Slaughter, Viander Cross or Octagonal, whichever way you look at it. It's the time for the Golden Boy to shine. Golden, what did you like this week?
Leave that alone. It's run its course after 2 weeks, I think, hasn't it, mate?
Nah, it's going to be a decade of it, I reckon.
I can see it happening. That's all right.
What did you like this week?
This week we've got Zach on Red Lion. Okay, gate 6. Now, they went very fast here early, and he went to go forward, and Zach wasn't as aggressive as he normally is, and that's what I liked on an odds-on chance. Normally, when they're odds-on, he just drives them like anything, and sometimes too much. So he realises he can't get there, and this is what's won the race. He's come back here to get in, and that's won the race there because they run a 21.54. He would have been up there 3 or 4 horses wide, attacking, and he wouldn't have finished the horse race off because John Sires's horses aren't like that. They need to take a sit. The way they're trained, the better with a sit. And he just gave it a nice ride there. But the other thing he did here, Clint, was in the straight, he never panicked and there wasn't much room to go. And he bided his time. He didn't push the other one right out of the way. He waited and he just gradually got into the clear, and he didn't win by much, and everything had to go right for him to win, and it did. You'll see up here there's no run, and he starts to come around the horse in the purple and greens heels when it shifts here, and he's going to come just a little bit of a push, come out, without causing too much trouble. Now he's about to get into the clear. Hasn't gone for the stick yet because he hasn't been balanced. And he gets balanced and he goes, whoosh, go, let's go. And he fell in, Clint. He wasn't impressive, but he did enough to win.
Yeah, definitely.
Great ride.
It was a great ride. And we saw Hugh Bowman run second there on Fantastic Treasure. I find it interesting, the dynamic between the two a little bit, Shane. You can see them. They're both keeping an eye on one another where they are in the run. Hugh sat behind Zach there, probably made his move around hoping that Zach couldn't get out. But it's obviously you're always having a look where your main dangers are. But in particular, I think those two guys are sort of, yeah, they've certainly got one eye on what's happening and one eye on the other rider.
Clint, I've got to correct you there. You're incorrect when you said they're keeping an eye on each other. Zach cannot keep an eye on Huey. Huey can keep an eye on Zach because Zach's up there. Huey's always 5 or 6 lengths behind Zach, watching him. So Zach can never see what Huey's doing, mate, because Zach's always forward. Very rarely he gets back. Although 2 weeks ago, the double he rode of Richardson, I think, both those horses he got back. And he rode about 4 favourites on the day that were odds on, and he put them up there, drove them out of the gates, and he didn't ride any win. Yeah. None of them won, I think, that day.
He came from behind on Dragon Pride when he went around over the moon that day. Yeah. So it doesn't happen that often, but it has happened.
Different type of riders, but both very effective with the way they ride, and both riding extremely well and are dominating, of course. And then you've got Vincent Ho, who's riding very well, and Matthew Chadwick's riding very well, and they've done really well for the Chinese jocks.
Who caught your eye in regards to a slaughter there, Glamour Boy?
No, I'm leaving it alone. Nothing caught my eye. Nothing.
Yeah, I was a bit the same in the last couple of weeks. Sometimes I'm surprised when Shane leaves one go.
Nothing. Nothing's going on, boys. I've been working very hard.
He's in love.
He's in love. You're like a Jamaican.
No. She got that one wrong.
He's actually blushing, I think, at the moment.
He's blushing. He is blushing. He has changed. Look at him. First time ever the Golden Boy's blushing. Well, mate, just you stay in love. You keep swinging hands, mate, because all the jockeys in Hong Kong are enjoying it.
I work too hard watching replays and doing my database to be worrying about women. Trust me. Anyone that bets for a living and does a lot of form, very hard to have a relationship because they've got too much work on.
Shane Dye doesn't care about women. You heard it here first on the Triple Trio. The best in the business on our team is Nicole Purton, who goes toe-to-toe with a South African legendary jockey to find out the special ingredients that made him a great.
One of the legends of Hong Kong racing is South African jockey Felix Coetzee. In the first of 2 parts with Felix, I'll be catching up with him and getting the inside running on his highlights as a rider, the peers he most respects, and the silent witness ride. Then next week, I'll catch up with him to find out more about the work he's doing with the Hong Kong Jockey Club Apprentice School.
The champ's got a big heart, silent witness. He fights back. He's all heart. He's a great horse. The world champion wins in a canter. He's too good, silent witness.
Felix, tell me why you wanted to be a jockey.
Nicole, my dad was actually a trainer, And I had the pony when I was 6 years old, and I rode track work for him every Saturday morning, so I had a bit of a kickstart. So when I was an apprentice, obviously you want to win as much as you can, and I rode this horse one day and I got beaten. I ran second, close finish. And in those days in South Africa, they used to bring out these form guides with the photographs afterwards, and then where you finished, and then comments by somebody. And in this particular race where I got beat, the comment was, needed stronger handling. It was like somebody put an iron rod through my heart. I've never, I'm 64, I haven't forgotten it, okay? And I just had to get back at that all my life. And yeah, from that day, I just like, no more. I'm never gonna say that again. I tried to style myself on stronger riders, and I had a lot of kind of anger in me and that sort of thing too. And just try to get more balanced and more aggressive. And I never, every time it was in a finish, a close finish, I just didn't want to get beaten, you know. I just always felt that I've got you. I felt that I was looking back at the person next to me all the time. It just stuck in my DNA to fight like that for those finishes, you know. That stuck with me.
Silent witness, I'll never see anything like this again in my life. 17 straight, stand cheer, applaud the best because he's just got better. Unbelievable. When is this going to end, silent witness? The best sprinter that there could possibly have ever been.
And silent witness, to briefly touch on him, what was your favourite memory of him?
Nicole, you know, with him, you met Mitchell earlier on, and we can just go on for hours and hours talking about the little things, not even about the racing, his little characteristics, his little habits. And even with the other great horses that have come around, you know, I just hope that the riders appreciate them the way we appreciated Silent Witness, because his mannerisms, everything like that were just so special. That's even besides the races, yeah.
Out of all of the races you've won, and there's been plenty, which has been the most special or memorable to you?
It's a tough one, you know,
that's
because...
That's a good problem to have.
But because for me, you know, sometimes winning a Class 5 race where I think I've ridden a good race or something like that, you know, that's also meant a heck of a lot. The big ones are really nice, Silent Witness was obviously very special. Things like Rocket Man too, you know, experiences with him. He was just so strong. And, you know, the preparation with him. I went on diet like 2 months before I was going to ride him, because to get my body right, to be fit enough to be able to hold him. Because if he ran away with me in the morning, he would have broken down. And it was like by the skin of my teeth every day that I only used to control him, you know.
So the wins were worth it.
Yeah.
They made it all the more special.
Absolutely.
How would you describe your riding technique, and why do you think it was so effective?
Nicole, I like being forward on a horse. You know, I was, from the time I was an apprentice, I liked being handy in races, racing in the first half of the field. Towards the end of my career, I think I was better known for leading. You know, I was riding for Tony a lot, and I was pretty comfortable there. Yeah, I wanted to be forward, and yeah, I suppose at the time I thought about taking luck out of the equation. But, you know, learning what I have now doing this job, I'd be a lot different.
How so?
Well, I'd be a lot more tactical. And ride a lot differently. I'd be a lot more, I think, conservative, tactical, yes. And that's what I'm trying to teach at the moment. You know, you just can't be one-dimensional. And I did ride some horses that came from behind, but I think I was very much more a forward rider. But I would have, today, knowing what I know now, I would be a lot more versatile. Yeah, I really wasn't enormously talented. I think I just worked very hard for it. and yeah, they just followed me. I was very, very lucky and blessed.
Well, you're very humble. I would have to disagree since that question came directly from Zach himself. But I would agree. Luck has something to do with it, but I think you're playing it down a little bit. I think what we saw on the track was something that a lot of jockeys would probably never achieve, and you should be proud of that.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I mean, I've had some real lows and some real highs, and I had to, like I say, from this side, it feels like I had to work for quite a lot of it.
Silent Witness goes to the lead. He draws away Silent Witness. Silent Witness wins easily by 3. Silent Witness, I'll never see anything like this again in my life. 17 straight. Stand cheer. Applaud the best because he's just got better.
Well, great insight from Felix Coetzee. And Shane, you had an opportunity to see him up close and personal. What made him great and how did you assess him?
He was very good on front runners. He didn't used to go too slow and he didn't used to go too fast. He just rated them perfectly. So he got on with Tony really well because Tony just wants everything to lead all the time. But outside of that, he's a really nice gentleman. He's a lovely bloke, isn't he, Clint?
Yeah, he was very professional, as most of the South Africans were. And, he was a fantastic rider. He's probably underrated. He's probably undersold his achievements a little bit. He was a 75-time Group 1 winner. Wow. And, he rode a lot of good races, most famously associated with, of course, Silent Witness, as we just heard. But, look, you'd love to have someone like Felix in charge of the kids, the apprentices in the school. Is only going to help them along the way.
That's a great insight. Well done to Nicole Purton. And actually, part 2 of that interview will be all about the Hong Kong Jockey Club Apprentices School and Felix's role there. So let's talk global racing. Well, let's talk global racing, and the eyes of the world were at Royal Randwick for the Queen Elizabeth, and it was billed as Australia's best versus the English. But Golden Boy, it was a one-act affair because Dubai Honour was simply too good.
It was always going to be a one-act affair, Richo. I can't believe I read a story in the paper during the week. There was Jim Castee, Corey Brown, 2 others who were they, Glenn Boss, Malcolm Johnson, saying they would ride Anamoe. I wouldn't have ridden an Anamoe in 100 years. He's not in the same class as this other horse. He's a very good horse, Anamoe. He's no champion. And I used to ride a horse called Tie the Knot. I never, ever called him a champion. He was a superstar horse. Championing the world is used too frequently now in Australian racing. But Anamoe's a very good horse. But, you've got to remember, too, that Dubai Honour isn't the best in Europe. He's just off the best. And he does this to him. Both had their chance to win. I thought Richo, James rode his perfectly, and so did Tom. And the best horse won on the day, but he was always going to be the best horse. Like if Golden 60 goes there and races Anamoe over a mile to 2,000, he would beat him 10 out of 10 times. He'd sit behind him and run over top of him. And that's no disrespect to Anamoe, but he's been built up here so much that people just expect he's the best and is going to win. And he's not, Richo. Simple as that.
Yeah, 2,000 metres. To be fair, 2,000 metres really played into his favour. Hutch, I mean, we've all loved Anamoe. He's the most successful Godolphin Group 1 horse in history. But I reckon he is an elite miler. And at 2,000 metres, on a rain-affected going against a horse who's got high quality, he's slightly exposed.
Yeah, I think the 2,000 metres obviously just tests him a little bit more than the others. In the mile, for me, I prefer him at the mile. If they're talking about going to England, which we're hearing they are, then I would think the mile's in his wheelhouse, and he'll be very competitive over a mile in England if he gets good ground. I know he handles all ground. He's a super horse, but I think for me, that's where he's best placed because the competition is so strong over those 2,000 metres. So the mile would be where he needs to go if he's going to Ascot.
Yeah, now Dubai Honour is going to go to Hong Kong, and Greg Carpenter, our special guest, will join us in a moment. We'll talk about that because he's been able to entice him to come and run on Champions Day. Talking about global racing, this one caught my eye. Now, remember the mighty Yankee Rose? She was a Group 1 winner in Australia. She has produced a filly, widest runner. Have a look at this finish here to win the Japanese 1,000 Guineas Group 1 race.
Yeah, well, we talk a lot about the Japanese investing in their bloodlines. And obviously the offer was too good to hang on to Yankee Rose, but she was runner-up placed in a Golden Slipper and placed in a Cox Plate behind Winks and Hartnell. Yeah. And this is one of her progeny, great shots from Japan. But, Shane, that this is why they keep doing well. They're buying all the good bloodstock and they're reaping the rewards.
Well, once they started the Japan Cup in the 80s, they wanted to get better, and that's what they've done. They weren't the best, but they're getting there now, and they buy the best around the world to breed. I think, Richo, you're better than me at this, but I think she's had 4 starts and won 2 Group 1s. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think she's extraordinary. Her name is Liberty Island, and she is one to really follow out of Yankee Rose. So that was some acceleration, wasn't it? From the rear of the field, that was brilliant. So we watch her with great interest moving forward. That's a quick look at a couple of races of interest from a global point of view. It's the perfect segue to chat to our special guest, Greg Carpenter. Our very special guest, a new member of the executive team at the Hong Kong Jockey Club, well known to our Australian audiences, is Greg Carpenter. And Greg, welcome to the show, mate. Great to see you. And how have you settled into Hong Kong?
Loving it, Richo. It's 7 months into the Odyssey at this stage. It was a great introduction with Hong Kong International Race Day in December, which produced some great highlights. And now looking forward to FWD Champions Day on April the 30th.
Yeah, well, that's what we want to discuss about, Greg, as well. And some of those internationals that are coming over, you must be, from an Australian perspective anyway, a little bit buoyed with some representation, which we've probably lacked in recent years, really, horses coming from Australia. So both Annabelle Neesham coming over, and we've got Andrew Forsman coming over with, of course, Aegon
and My Oberon.
My Oberon, respectively, yeah.
Well, it's really interesting, Hutchi, because the April 30th date is a little bit of challenge. As we know, it comes at the beginning of the European season and after the 2 weeks of the championships in Sydney. So really pleased that My Oberon has bounced out of that running-up effort to Mr. Brightside in the Doncaster. Annabelle's becoming a great supporter of ours here in Hong Kong. She gave Laws of Indices a very focused preparation when he came up here and ran 3rd to California Spangle and Golden 60 in the Hong Kong Mile in December. It wasn't beaten far. We would have liked to have seen him return, but really pleased that Annabelle and a huge contingent of owners, Richo. It's the Annabelle Neesham show coming up to support My Oberon. 17 of the owners, half the VRC board in Glenn Carmody, Neil Werrett, Neil Wilson is coming, David Sim from the Moody Valley Racing Club. It's a big entourage coming up to cheer on My Oberon. And it is a difficult sell also in that mile category because Golden 60's reputation around the world is now complete. He's seen as the best miler in the world. So for My Oberon to be on his way here, and also Aegon for Andrew Forsman. Andrew's going to be a star of New Zealand and Australian training ranks. He's been partnered up with Murray Baker, one of the all-time greats, for a number of years. Now with Murray's retirement, he's going out on his own and doing great things. I'm really pleased that he's given Aegon a targeted preparation as well. We've been speaking to Andrew for quite a while. After the All-Star Mile at Moonee Valley, he decided not to go to Sydney, and he's focused his attention on the Champions Mile here on April 30. And I think people should be encouraged by the fact that Laws of Indices ran such a great race, and facilities here in the quarantine, the preparation going into the race, horses handle it really well. And I think that both Aegon and also My Oberon are going to run really well. And pleased to say that Andrew's got a very positive riding engagement as well, with James McDonald going to be the rider for Aegon. So I think they'll both run really well, but the reality is that Golden 60, as Shane said, he's a champion, and he and California Spangle are going to be very hard to beat.
Shane, are they wasting their time, these Aussies coming across and tackling the superstar Golden 60?
Yes, they are. He'll be winning. He'll get a good ride from Vincent, and he's too good. One quick question, Greg. Anamoe against Golden 60 over a mile. Who wins?
I would have to say Golden 60. I'm not disrespecting Anamoe's form. He has been terrific in Australia. I do think that the mile is probably his best distance. I think the even though it wasn't by a big margin, his weight for age win leading into the Queen Elizabeth, I thought was quite arrogant. He sat wide. He didn't by a big margin, but he won that race very, very impressively. But certainly on his home track, Golden 60 would be winning, and I think wherever they went, Golden 60 would win. It's a really interesting beast, Golden 60. You love him from afar, but when you come up here to Hong Kong and watch him run, he's adored by the crowd. Hutchi's probably seen him in person. He ambles around the parade ring. He doesn't look like a superstar champion, but after the race, when he comes back, he has given every ounce of his being in the contest. He does actually come back, and you can see that he's been in a real race. So he's a competitor, he's an athlete, and he's a superstar racehorse. And his partnership with Vincent Ho has been remarkable. But to answer your question, Shane, Anamoe is a superstar, but I think Golden 60 is a champion, and I'd be on Golden 60.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the highlights, Greg, in it. But I want to talk about what might well be the centerpiece race, the QE2 Cup itself, because it's so good to have Dubai on a win, obviously, here, and then obviously tackle Romantic Warrior amongst obviously the Japanese entrants. Can you run us through quickly? I mean, obviously your thoughts on the race, and you mentioned Geraldina as one of the highlight runners, but what your thoughts on the Japanese entrants from an international ratings perspective thus far?
Well, Hutchi, I said that this looms as one of the great races of the calendar in 2023, and probably one of the most, the strongest and interesting contests in Hong Kong in recent years. We know how good Dubai Honour has been in Australia, winning the Ram, and then against a stronger field, he was also very arrogant in winning the Queen Elizabeth. He was a very highly rated 3-year-old. He was rated 120 plus, beating the opposition that he has in Australia. He's returned to a figure of 122 with the Longines ratings that have just been released overnight. And he is a world-class horse. I would be a little bit, I wouldn't judge him on his form last year. I think William Haggis has got him back to his very best. So he's rated 122. Our own horse in the race, Romantic Warrior, which is a great story, for his win in the Hong Kong Cup in December last year, was rated 124. The horse that he beat there, Danon the Kid, and he beat him by 4 lengths. He ran very well in the Saka High at his last start, where Geraldina and also Hishiatwazu ran. So Danon the Kid's well exposed. On that form, he's probably got a couple of lengths to make it up on the other 2 horses, but he certainly can do it. And interestingly enough, Danon the Kid connections had engaged Vincent Ho to ride. So they've got the benefit of a local superstar riding. So I think he's definitely a winning chance, but will probably have to lift a little bit to get towards Romantic Warrior and also Dubai Honour. And the other horse, the one, as I said, I'm really looking forward to is Geraldina. She's been a late bloomer, but last year she won the Queen Elizabeth, the Fillies and Mares version in Japan, where she beat Win Marilla. Then she stepped out to the Arima Kinnan, which really, along with the Japan Cup, is the greatest race in Japan. It's probably the race that is most revered. She ran into an absolute superstar in Equinox, but she ran very creditably to run 3rd in that race. And at her reappearance for 2023, looked unlucky, held up on the rails and ran 6th in the Osaka High. So I think Geraldina is a really good chance in the race. Rated 115 as a mare, she gets a 4-pound sex allowance, so it's the equivalent of 119. But I think she is the horse that's going to continue to develop and lift in the ratings. Christian De Muro rides her. Hishiatwazu, most likely Joe Moreira, and of course Tom Marquand will ride to Byron, and really glad that William Haggis has decided to come to Hong Kong on his way back to Europe. And it sets up, as I said, one of the great contests for 2023.
And obviously you've got a good background and an unbelievable background in the handicapping side of things, Greg. So we know you're in a rush. We'll we won't keep you too long, but just in terms of this race on a worldwide basis, going to be, as you mentioned, probably one of the most important races, I suppose, globally throughout the year, just in terms of lining up all the form, connecting Australia, obviously, with the run with Dubai on it. We've got Romantic Warrior there and all the Japanese form as well. So it's a key form race for the year.
It absolutely is, because as you say, Dubai on has proven superior to the Australian weight for age horses. It would be disappointing, I think, for Australian racing if he doesn't run well in Hong Kong and then goes back to Europe and run well. There's a certain level of scepticism even amongst Australian racing fans and commentators about the quality of our weight for age performance in Australia. So it's really important that Dubai on that, having gone to Australia as a day it did for William Haggis, that he comes here and runs well and also goes back to Europe and runs well. 4 very good horses from Japan, and the one I didn't mention is Prognosis. Important and positive riding engagement to be ridden by Zach Purton. He's an emerging, also keep an eye on him. He'll go much higher during the year. He comes into this race about 113. But you're absolutely right. Romantic Warrior, Dubai on up, linking the Australian and the European form, and 4 very talented and strong contenders from Japan. Makes this a key race for world racing fans during the year to see how the different areas around the world will line up. And the sprint is going to be a great race. I know we're running out of time, but Lucky Swayness in the latest world rankings been put into the 123. For those of you who this horse is not on the radar, have a look at him. Zach Purton has been associated with it. He should have almost won the Hong Kong sprint, but was unlucky and didn't have any room at all in the straight. If not for that, he would have won his last 6 starts. And he is a superstar sprinter by Swayness, so it's a New Zealand bred horse. Wellington's been the established star for quite some time. The 2 internationals here are Aguri, the Japanese sprinter, positive riding engagement. James McDonald will ride Aguri. He won 4 races on the bounce and then was favourite of the Takamatsu Omiya in February. Loomed up as one of the favourites, hit the front 100 out, but I don't think he was suited by the heavy track that day, unusual for Japan racing. So Aguri will bounce back. And Flaming Rip, again, another positive riding engagement. Shipping Bowman has taken the ride on him, owned by Sir Michael Owen. He was second in the Commonwealth Cup at Royal Ascot, the 3-year-old Group 1 last year, ran 4th in the Haydock sprint against the old levels of Group 1 level. And then resumed winning the major sprint at Doha in Qatar in February. And Hugo Palmer brings him to Hong Kong. Those 2 horses on ratings very hard push to get near Lucky Swayness, but they are both emerging horses, and I think they are definitely at least place a rich way chances in the race. So a lot of different form lines across the 3 races, 3 remarkable renewals, but Hong Kong is hopeful. We are hopeful that we can win at least 2 and perhaps 3 of the races on the day.
Greg, we love your passion, mate. Keep up the great work. You've given us a wonderful assessment of the 3 chances. We would love maybe to jump in the suitcases of one of the guests that are coming over.
I thought you were coming.
Mate, we would love to be there, but unfortunately it doesn't look like we're going to be. Wonder if Chris Judd's going to be there as well, one of the owners of My Oberon, the all-time great AFL player. Maybe he and Michael Owen together would be some sort of a photo. Hey, Greg, brilliant as always, mate. Keep doing great work over there.
I'm loving it, Richo, and for everyone who's watching Hong Kong racing tomorrow, a really interesting race 9. Hutchi will tell you all about it. Victor, the winner, one of the emerging horses up here, goes around. How Deep Is Your Love is also one of our emerging sprinters, and Goko wins. So race 9 on the program at Sha Tin tomorrow is a great race, but also a pointer to future stars here in Hong Kong. Thanks, guys. Enjoy your weekend of racing.
I love it. Greg Carpenter there, and let's preview Saturday's racing at Jockey. Racing on Saturday at Sha Tin, Hutch. So it's going to be a busy day for all of the punters and analysts. Let's identify a few races. Let's start with race 4.
Yeah, race 4, very interesting race. There'll be a short price favourite here with Golden Express, who, well, he was an emphatic winner, wasn't he, last time he went around? But an interesting race. Euro Rocks has been placed on his Hong Kong debut for Francis Loy. He'll strip a little bit fitter. Victory Moments is another one that's going to be in the game through his run behind Excellent Fighter as well. But this is the horse they got to beat. He's a very smart horse, this guy. He obviously hails originally from Queensland, but he put up a big number this day with his win off a solid tempo. Shane, I know the form behind him hasn't worked out well, but his effort was excellent, and he looks like he's going places. He's one of those from John Sizer's yard that looks like he's destined to go much higher in the handicap.
He'll be winning again. That day there, he come home, I think it was 22-1-6, Clint, and he's a horse going higher, and I think he's going to be a lot better horse next year than this year. He'll be winning. I can't see anything that is going to beat him.
He was the horse actually on his first start that ran behind Victor the Winner, and he was well backed. That form race from Class 4's worked out really well, so he'll be definitely the one to beat. And I think those two that I mentioned, Euro Rocks and, of course, Victory Moments, they look the dangers or the Quinella chances in the race. So I don't think
there's another one there, Clint. Sorry to pull you up.
Yep.
Pulsar Strider. He's not the worst in the race. He can run a race for a Quinella also.
So went up 9 rating points on that performance. So we're expecting a short price.
He rises 4 kilos. Might have been a little tricky had he drawn wide, but he'll. I think Zach will ride him as he did there. A little bit of patience and let him work home, and hopefully he can run over the top of them.
HutchiesHonkers.com is the place, of course, to get all the betting plans, and Hutchie will take you through the best way to attack that race. Race number 8 here caught your eye.
This is a tougher race, that's for sure. We like to go through them later in the day. We were on Hyper Dragon Ball last start, and on face value had his chance. I'm striking that run a little bit similarly to what the run of Golden Artie recently, where they sort of led with him, and I'm not sure it really suited because his runs prior when coming from off the speed have been fantastic, and I think he can run a bit of a race. He's coming through the same form lines as a couple of others, Majestic Color, Tamra Blitz, Co-Partner Ambition. On face value, Shane, I'm not sure what you thought of the run. He seemed to have his chance. As I said, we backed him this day. Do you think, firstly, Zach will just ride him with a little bit more patience now and let him work home? Because he seemed to be a bit of a sitting shot there.
Yeah, I never had him going forward last start, Clint. I backed him too, but I thought he'd go back a bit. But he's got gate 1. He'll be going forward. Zach will box seat him for sure from gate 1, I reckon. Couple of horses you mentioned, of course. Majestic Color, I think his run the other day was really good. He was off the track the whole way. He's definitely not the worst if he can get across. But I've got him on top, probably Hyper Dragon Ball in that.
Yeah, I think Hyper Dragon Ball, Majestic Color, I agree with what you said about him. Ryan was sort of 3 wide off a slow tempo last start, and I think I think Hugh will be more positive. The horse that was unlucky last start, Shane, is Happy Daily. He ran into a wall of horses. He still produced the 5th best final 200 at the meeting, and he worked home really well, and that was after being a touch held up. Yeah, would have loved for him to draw a gate, but with a touch of luck in running, I thought he could go well.
Yeah, no, he did. He got held up about the 300 for a bit, and he kept coming after that. 11's a little bit awkward for him because he likes to be running about 5th, 6th, 7th somewhere, so he really needs a gate. But I've definitely got a Hyper Dragon Ball on top from gate 1.
Race number 9, top weight is Nervous Witness, but Victor the Winner goes up 10 rating points.
I'll price this race up. I might change it a little closer to the time, just depending on a couple of factors. But at this point in time, I'm happy to have Victor the Winner. The only thing I might do is shorten him in a little bit more. I've got him $2.43. The key runner in this race is Nervous Witness. What to do with him? He was pretty disappointing on the dirt. Do we forget that run completely? Obviously, he's trialled okay, but his 1,200-meter turf runs are all excellent. And the other runner in the race that's very interesting is a horse that Greg Carpenter has mentioned in How Deep Is Your Love. He has won 3 of 7 in Hong Kong. He's won his last 2. It was throttled down the other day, and I may well bring him in a little bit more. But there's going to be a lot of speed in this race. Now, the interesting dynamic for this race, Shane, and as we see Victor the Winner absolutely demolish rivals, this race rated really well on Derby Day, and obviously the pattern suited those on speed on the day. But all that said, he ran time, but he did it doing it himself. Now, how do you see this race here with him? Nervous Witness as your leader, Hugh Bowman on Nervous Witness. He's very fast. He was going to apply a lot of pressure. So the dynamic of this race is really interesting. I thought this is an opportunity perhaps for Zach to take a sit off Nervous Witness and teach maybe Victor the Winner something, because if he eyeballs Nervous Witness, it won't work out well, I don't think.
He's got a really good gate here, Zach. It's the best thing. 9 drawn out. He's drawn outside. You got to be drawn outside the leader, and then you're not dictated to. He can do what he wants. He might lead. He might sit outside of him. It doesn't matter. He's going to be very hard to beat. It's actually, this is Zach's test, this race, to see whether he's going to be a trainer, Clint. Because I read in the paper this morning, he told Danny Shim to run him no matter what, and Danny Shim didn't want to run him because it wasn't long enough. He likes to see him have over a month between runs, as he stated on this show before.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So Zach's convinced him to run him here. So it'll be interesting. I think How Deep Is Your Love's going to be very hard to beat from gate 4, 119 pounds. I think it's a 2-horse race, Victor the winner, and How Deep Is Your Love.
Yeah, well, he's the one that sits out of that battle. Well, he still had a month between runs, Victor the winner. So when he didn't back up once before, I'll have to have another look. But I've got a feeling it was only 2 weeks between runs for him on that occasion, maybe 2.5. Shane.
It was 21 days.
21 days. Was it 3 weeks? Okay. So
yeah, 21 days it was. This time it's 27 days.
We go to the mile for race number 10, the Class 3. Hutch, how did you analyse these?
This is a tough race. This is not an easy one to finish the day with. That said, I do like one here, and I reckon it'll be a good chance, and hopefully a bet in Universal Horizon. 2 reasons why I like Universal Horizon.
Horse number 13.
Number 13 is that he will get up to the mile. I think he's been looking for the mile. And, of course, he ran well last start. It was a race that was on pace, dominated with Dromberg Banner right up there. And he was closing with every bound to the line. It was a good performance. I think hopefully from gate 9 he can get into a half-decent spot. Because there's one race that is the key form reference, and it involves 9 of the 14 runners here, Richo. And Happy Together was very unlucky. He made our Sid file on the back of it. And, he ran into a wall of traffic that day. I think he would have nearly won that race. Simba gets a run. Now, there's Simba there, but Happy Together's just sort of been shut out of it prior to that. And he ran very well, Pegasus Hero. So there's a lot of different ways you can read the format of this race, but I think the horse to take in particular would be Happy Together, and then he came out with gate 14. So there's a lot of moving parts, Shane, to this race. There's not a lot between a number of them. But I'm taking a different form reference to 9 of the 14 runners. I think Universal Horizon might be the way to play.
He's not the worst. He's got no weight. His last run was good. And, of course, he goes to 1,600 for the first time, which the way he was racing would think would help him. Happy Together has got back and still won getting back. And from gate 14, if Zach wants to go back, he can. You've got Massive Action from gate 12 who's going to lead for sure. And, of course, Simba's going to get the right run in the race from gate 4. I'd probably have Simba on top, but he has got 135 pounds. If Happy Together drawn a gate, he would be on top, but he hasn't, as you said, Clint. But I'm not knocking your horse, Universal Horizon. He's definitely got a chance looking at this. The Best Peach, he's been racing all right, Clint. He's been getting off the pace and coming home. He's not the worst.
Yeah, he's like a couple in that race. There's a few of them that get back and running on. There's not much between them. I can see, a lot of them turning the tables on one another in that last race. So for those who like to play the multiples or exotics, trebles in Hong Kong or quaddies in Australia, then I'd say go a little bit wider in that last leg, but make sure you have Universal Horizon in there.
Yes, please. Now, best bets. Can I push you for a best bet?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Victor the winner. He keeps turning up. He keeps doing what he needs to do. I'm happy with what Shane mentioned about him drawing wide. I think that leaves Zach with some good options. So I think it'll, obviously How Deep Is Your Love is a good Quinella chance, but I wouldn't be, with Nervous Witness, the jury's still out a little bit in terms of just that poor run last start, I suppose. Outside of that, a little earlier in the card, of course, there was one Hyper Dragon Ball looks a good chance. I agree with Shane. He'll be sitting, I think he'll just ride him with a little bit of cover this time. So I think Hyper Dragon Ball's a good chance. Race 8, and that's horse number 9. I think he looks a good chance. And those would be the 2 main players of the day, I would have thought at this point in time. But for the rest, you'll have to go to the site, Richard.
Damn straight we will. HutchiesHonkers.com. Golden Boy, do you have a one in particular that you haven't quite mentioned yet?
No, he's going to be hard to beat. Hyper Dragon Ball for sure from gate 1. Zach will just box seat him. Actually, here's one of Zach's. He's got the blinkers on. It's a non-winner, Golden Bill.
What race is that in, mate?
Race 7. I think it is. I'm just going to get it up here. I just looked on my sheet.
Golden Bull, race 7, number 3.
Yeah, he's got the blinkers on for the first time. He's a non-winner, but he'll put himself there. He'll give him his chance. It's just a race, that. White Blue Yonder was disappointing the other day, Clint. He might have been ridden a bit close. He seems to go better when he's off the pace, although he has gone well ridden forward before. It's not the top. He's dropping in class. Roman Turbo, and its run was good the other day, and with the kid on, takes 5 off, I think. It's not the worst, but no, I'll go Golden Bull.
Yeah,
Okay.
Golden Bull's an interesting runner, Shane. I like your selection there. I mean, if you ignore that last run where he was just a little bit of a checkered path behind Lucky Gold, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Lucky Gold.
he ran second. He had his
Yeah,
chance.
he did.
You're correct. He got held up a little bit at around the 350, 400, but he still wouldn't have won the race. But I'm just looking for the blinkers to help him and improve him a bit.
Yeah, and the form around his previous 2 runs, I think there's 4 and 5 winners out of both of those races. So he was a beaten favourite there. I think Shane might be onto something there.
So Hutchie says Victor the winner and Hyper Dragon Ball, and the Golden Boy says go for the Golden Bull, if you don't mind. You know it makes sense.
And what are you going for, Richo?
Beg pardon?
And what are you going for?
I'm just barracking whatever you two support, mate. I'm just more than happy to wait for you to send me through the appropriate form. And
just send me one of those tips like you did in the Sydney Cup.
Your microphone's not working at the moment, Shane. As always, a bloody pleasure to see you, my friend.
Goodbye, mate.
Goodbye. The Golden Boy says bye. Hutchbuster, good luck on the weekend. Keep up this red hot form.
And next week we'll also try and have a couple of special guests. Looking forward again to the Champions Mile QE2 at the end of the month. Can't wait.
Bring it on. Hope you enjoyed the show. Triple Tree. I'll be back next week.